Good evening and welcome to Thai PBS World tonight. UK is facing tough challenges on COVID-19 situation. A newspaper has offered a headline, "No End in Sight." The death tolls have risen quite sharply and Prime Minister Boris Johnson is under intensive care unit treatment in the hospital. So what's the latest situation? Thai PBS World tonight has talked to UK Ambassador to Thailand, Ambassador Brian Davison.
Do you have any idea how many British citizens here in Thailand that may need help or advice from the embassy?
So we have, there are two sets of groups of tourists, groups of British nationals here. The biggest group, of course, is our long-term residents, and we have between 70 and 75,000 British nationals who live and work here and who have the relevant medical insurance and are settled here. On top of that, as you know, we have around 1 million tourists a year from the UK into Thailand. So at the moment, obviously, that number has dwindled. We are running an email inbox to register people who want to go back to the UK. That has around about 1,000 people. We've already issued around 1,800 letters to support visa extensions. So those are people we suspect are here also. There may be up to 4,500, 5,000 people on short-term visas who may be looking to return to the UK, but are probably here in Thailand. Quite difficult to get to precise figures.
And you must be having press briefing, daily briefing every day with the UK side. What's the latest situation?
So daily briefing multiplied by about 3 times. I have about 3 briefings a day. You'll be familiar with that. No, I think I heard a little bit of your earlier report. You will know from the news reports that the UK has quite strict restrictions now on movement within the UK. We are definitely applying the social distancing rule. All our advice really, and all the measures we take are really based on health and scientific advice. And I would say that we have essentially 4 pillars to our response in the UK. Firstly, around social distancing. Like many places in the world, British people are really only allowed out of their homes to do essential tasks, to shop for supplies, to seek medical treatment, and 1 form of exercise a day. And that allows us really to prioritize support for the most vulnerable in our society. So the elderly, the people with underlying health concerns. And there's almost a policy of near isolation for those most vulnerable category. We are fortunate to have a huge army of volunteers in the UK. Around 750,000 people have volunteered to help the health service or to look after in terms of delivery for these people in care. So that is one aspect. The second bit is really gearing up our National Health Service, which is fantastic and has incredibly committed people to meet the challenge, to increase the targeted testing of people, to increase our capacity in terms of the number of critical care beds, new temporary hospitals, and thousands of beds being constructed. The third pillar really is around our science and research and innovation element, using our academics and our world-class leading universities to model what the spread of COVID-19 will look like in the UK and how the health system will cope, but also take part in vaccine trials. And Oxford University, for example, is one of the leading vaccine candidates for COVID-19.
Mr. Ambassador, I'm sure that you must have seen this grim forecast by the School of Medicine in Seattle of the University of Washington, which put the number of potential fatalities in UK at 60,000 by August. And a lot of British scientists are pushing back against this forecast. So do you have any information on this?
I don't have any information on that, except to say that, I think our response in the UK is led by science and our own analysis. There's no doubt that people individually are concerned about COVID-19. I myself have a very elderly mother, elderly relatives in the UK. I know a lot of Thai people here have sons, daughters, relatives in the UK. So on a personal level, Of course, we're worried by COVID-19 and the response. But what I can say is that if you look at the commitment of health professionals within the system, if you look at the scientists, the researchers who are doing work to try and model and mitigate and delay the onset of COVID, I think we have a very strong response, and I'm confident that the government is leading a proportionate and scientifically evidence-based action to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassador, but right now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in hospital in intensive care unit. So who is running the country?
Well, you know, I mean, the Prime Minister, obviously, we all wish him well. I mean, like anybody, you know, who is in intensive care now, our thoughts and prayers are very much with him and his family for a speedy and full recovery. But, you know, obviously, you know, in a well-oiled democratic machine like the UK, there is an entire government structure which kicks in. So, you know, the government has a plan for responding with this. It is led by the cabinet. Actually, the Foreign Secretary is currently the sort of first deputy minister. So, in a sense, in the day-to-day, he is taking some of the decisions, but very much a cabinet response and a plan that has been agreed by the whole of government. So, you know, while the Prime Minister is currently out of action, there is still a whole of government effective, consistent response.
Now, having the Foreign Secretary deputizing for the Prime Minister who cannot carry out his duty, is it something done by tradition or is it by law?
So the Foreign Secretary, though, he is actually has a separate role, which is essentially is the Deputy Prime Minister. So it's not always the Foreign Secretary. Sometimes that role is played up by somebody else. But in this case, Dominic Raab is the Deputy to the Prime Minister.
I see. So, and you as Ambassador, you report directly to him?
Directly to him, through a couple of layers, to be fair, but yes. Actually, I report directly to the Queen, I think. But anyway.
I see. You know, today the British government is supposed to decide whether to extend the lockdown, which was introduced back on March 23rd, right? And back then the government said after 3 weeks the lockdown would be reviewed. So it is the 3 weeks is almost up now. So have you heard any latest from London?
So I haven't heard the latest news, but I think it's absolutely right, as the Thai government is doing here, that you try and balance the health and security requirements against the economic impact. And in all of what the British government is doing, and I think also in what the Thai government is doing, it's about securing that balance. It's making sure that we review against scientific, medically based evidence what is the case for loosening or tightening restrictions. And that's the position the British government is in. They will be taking a view now on how successful measures have been, whether it's enough that allows them to lift restrictions now, or whether we need to continue or indeed tighten restrictions a little longer.
Yeah.
But all of these decisions are made on the basis of the advice from medical and scientific professionals.
Even though the situation here in Thailand is no less challenging, but I'm sure that the prayer of many Thais also go to the British people. Do you have any message for Thai people?
Well, my first message to the Thai people is thank you. I feel incredibly grateful and honoured, as do all of the British nationals here, to be in a society with such a great healthcare structure. I know from speaking to officials in the Ministry of Public Health how much thinking and preparation has gone into the response here. So a huge thank you, both for that national response, but also for the very small actions of kindness to me and all my colleagues here. But we cannot be complacent. And, you know, part of my job here is to make sure that British nationals here in Thailand understand that it is our responsibility to support the Thai government in containing the transmission. We must look after the most vulnerable in this society that we call home. So stay at home, stay safe.